Hello, and welcome to TCN's Cloudcast, where we explore the latest trends and innovations in the contact center industry. Today, we're thrilled to have McKay Bird, TCN's marketing director, here with us to share some of the highlights from TCN's most recent consumer survey. Let's take a look at what contact centers need to know to achieve greater success moving forward. Welcome to Cloudcast, McKay. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks, Spencer, for having me. It's really cool to be able to come on and be able to share some of the results and as well as kind of just talk about what I've seen.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I've been able to read through it, and there's a lot to dive into. So we're just going to get started. First off, I want to talk about the Americans' preferences in terms of talking to live agents. According to your 2024 consumer survey, 50% of Americans prefer to talk to a live agent by phone when communicating with a company's customer service department. Why do you think live agent interactions remain a strong preference despite the growing adoption of digital communication channels?
So I want to be really clear about this, right? There's always going to be a need for a voice channel. And for the foreseeable future, I don't anticipate a complete digital transition, if that makes sense. So companies will continue to push customers to other channels to complete some simple tasks and maybe through some automation, like checking your bill or updating order information. And that's all self-serving for the business, right? They're doing that to save money, to save resources, right? There's high constraints in some labor markets, especially when looking for agents, as well as with turnover. Training costs are a lot higher. So when given the option, companies will continue to try to funnel consumers and individuals to take the automated route, right? That's going to be the easiest and cheapest for them.
Right.
But I don't ever see voice going away. And I think when given the option, I think consumers prefer to talk to somebody, right? They have the comfort and the sense of getting a task accomplished quicker when you're talking to an agent.
Right.
And, like I mentioned before, I don't see that going away for the foreseeable future. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there still is a need for digital channels. Like, they're not going to go away. And the adoption, as you talk about these preferences, I think will continue to grow and the preferences will continue to shift with time. And that's as the younger generation gets older, as they're entering the workforce and society, they're bringing those trends with them and the technology as well, right? How I worked 10 years ago in the workspace is different than how I'm working today. So that's just with individuals that I'm working with. So I think it's important. Implementing a digital channel in your contact center will come down to that execution and as the technology gets better. And, I've also witnessed in my job here at TCN, the digital channel pendulum, that's what I'll call it, right? And sometimes businesses will swing it too far one way or too far the other way and not provide that opportunity for an individual to choose the channel that they prefer to communicate. And so if you go too far digital channels, you're going to be, obviously, I'm sure we'll jump into some of the reviews and some of the preferences there, but you're going to obviously look at negative reviews and so on and so forth and alienating your customers. But there needs to be a balance. There needs to be a very fine balance. And I think we saw some of this pendulum and the balance during the COVID years and during the pandemic. Just again, I already mentioned some of the challenges with hiring and finding agents and some of the challenges with hiring. And, hiring, agent training, and the turnover, those pressures that I mentioned, those are also all things to consider as well when you consider and look at those digital channels. So all of that kind of goes into the adoption. A lot of it is being pushed by consumers, but a lot of it businesses are at the forefront of implementing.
Yeah, I think you're completely correct, right? In saying there's a lot to take into consideration when trying to balance your contact center with voice versus digital channels. I mean, when I think of talking to an agent on the phone, I really want to talk to an agent because I want my problem solved by someone immediately.
Right.
I don't want to go through the loops. I don't want to take 20 steps to get to where I need to go. I just want it resolved. Um, and a lot of people, they want to shove people into, digital channels to simplify it, to cut costs. But I think that they definitely lose the element of the personal touch. I think that's something that a lot of people don't take into consideration when taking away those options from their customers. And so I think the nuances
Hmm.
are immense in this decision.
So what? So you bring up a great example, right? You have a personal experience of trying to resolve an issue over the phone, right? You have the satisfaction of it getting done right away, and the SLAs for an agent to be able to resolve an issue on first call, right? F is the first call resolution is a lot. The standard is a lot higher than other channels, like for example, email
Hmm.
or chat, right? The SLA for email could be 2 to 3 days. Say, hey, we'll respond when we log a ticket and an agent gets to it and will respond. And I think as a society, we've been trained to have instant answers. And I think that plays into this when you talk to a live, subconsciously we're trained that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that kind of leads into, another question I have is how can businesses balance that demand or the need for live interaction with the efficiency of digital and automated channels, and how can they balance the different efficiencies, right? You have the different efficiency between a live agent is solving the problem right in front of my eyes, and it can take a long time to get a hold of a live agent or an email agent. And so I want to use a different channel.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So number one is what I would do if I owned. Obviously, I don't run a contact center, but with the experience I have here at TCN, but I think taking time to identify common customer inquiries and looking at which ones can be automated. As I mentioned, there's a slew of things that could be automated in different communication channels, bill payments, your account lookups. So those are some of the most common and some of the ones that we recommend to start with. But as you look at that over a period of time, you should also analyze the call volume that's coming in for these inquiries, and then as well as consider your agent capacity to determine where those automations can provide the most value. Your agents are your most expensive resource. So I don't think it's 100% looking at what the customer inquiries are coming in, but you also have to consider what your agent capacity and what their call volume looks like. Those are it's kind of a balance of those two things. So when you look at that though, I wanted to talk a little bit about this AI that everybody's talking about in the contact center, right? So everybody's talking about AI, right? And they're saying, okay, how do I implement AI to either replace my agents, right? That's number one. They're thinking AI is going to replace everything. That's not the case. I think AI is really just to supplement the contact center and supplement what agents are doing to make their job easier, make them work more efficiently. But that's how you're going to improve your efficiency and as well as find that balance between the demand for live interactions and as well as those digital channels.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, McKay. I thought it was really interesting when you were talking about the different things that you need to analyze to determine which things can be implemented and adapted to digital channels. I was just wondering, how do you determine, what analytics system or what business intelligence system you're using in order to do that in mass, so that you don't have someone just going through spreadsheets looking at the data and trying to figure it out by hand?
Yeah, so I think you're referencing those customer inquiries, right? So you're getting, potentially thousands of inquiries a day, and contact centers generally ingest a ton of data, right? From call metrics to metadata to the agent interaction, and then you think about the consumer side and then the input into the CRM, and then if there's any transcription or voice recording or BI going on in the back end, and then you add payment details. agent schedule. So I just rattled off, I think, 8 or 10 points. And customer inquiries, they're coming in very quickly.
Right.
And how you can analyze all of this at scale is obviously if the platform you use, right? If you can scale it up through tools like conversational analytics, that's something that TCN offers here, is built right into the platform. But you can set up flags for some of these inquiries and build rules around them. So if you're getting a lot of inquiries about bill pay, or I need to pay my bill, that's something that maybe you should consider saying, hey, we need to put some resources behind our agents or behind the technology that our consumers are using so that they can self-serve. And then once you've digested that, then you can look at the data again and saying, okay, what's the next chunk of data coming in through our analytics and through our conversational analytics as we transcribe and as we look at these analysis. So, as I mentioned, it's kind of like, the saying is don't boil the ocean, or you can't boil the ocean. I can't remember the exact phrase, but it's that same mentality is if you do that and you try to analyze everything at once, you're going to get nowhere. You're going to accomplish nothing. And it's very smart to think about it in bite-sized bits. And I've witnessed, as we've brought clients over that have gone through years-long implementation processes.
Wow.
And it's because they start too big, or they're needing every bit of the contact center implemented. And, there might be a reason to do that, but if you're trying to scale your contact center and you have the ability to scale, I think that's when you're going to have a winning strategy. But I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. With this talk of, the digital channels and figuring out, how to automate things and keep live agents, I want to talk about the flip side of the coin, where while half of Americans prefer speaking with a live agent, and in your survey it shows that 72% prefer either email or text messaging instead of a live agent. So this it said that this was especially true among younger generations in America, but it looks like the trends persist across all age groups. I was just wondering what your thoughts are on this trend.
Yeah, this is really interesting because I looked at this twice. I was like, wow, this has actually not changed much year over year. And it's not surprising. Technology gets better. As it gets better, the younger generations, as I did mention this earlier, right? They're moving up in their work class and the society. And I would anticipate that more of them are starting to use email or text, right? But it comes down to how it is implemented and removing those barriers to communication. And it's just a win-win for consumers and as well as the contact center. And I think the younger generation is bringing these technologies with them. That's the point I'm trying to make, is they're bringing them with them. And it's forcing businesses to continue to adapt to these trends and to the new channels.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you're talking about the win-win, right? We're in this together. We're not trying to force them into something. We're not trying to make them think in our way, right? We want everyone to win. When our customers win, we win. And so I think that's a great way to look at it and think of it and just, go about your business. And so with the digital adoption, how should businesses prioritize their digital strategy to cater to that shift that we see in the younger generation?
No, again, another great point. And if you understand the customer and what their preferences are, what their behavior is, what value they're bringing to a potential sale or to your business, that lifetime value of a customer, that's when you really know how to best serve them through their channel of choice. And I think it comes back to my previous point, right, is don't try to boil the ocean. Take chunks and baby steps to implement this, right? You're not trying to complicate everything, but if you want to avoid those pitfalls and those year-long implementations, you got to start slow and grow.
That's great. Thank you. I wanted to shift a little bit off of the digital adoption topic and go over to the other big hitter that we see in contact centers, and that's wait times. Right? I'm sure everyone listening has experienced some sort of wait time on a call, wanting their answers to their questions. And given that your survey shows 67% of Americans won't wait more than 10 minutes on hold, what strategies can contact centers implement to improve or help ensure retention on calls?
I have been a part of the statistic many times. I think I've waited longer than 10 minutes on
Yep.
hold more than once.
Yeah.
But it comes down, right? There's technologies out there. TCN does have Q call back or virtual hold that's built into the IVR. And when you build those correctly and you're offering an exit or to provide them an off ramp to an alternate channel, that's going to help spread your agent resources. And let me explain how this works, right? So when you have a voice channel, you're waiting on hold, that's a one-to-one communication, right? One agent resource for one consumer. That's a lot of resources that being used right there, right? It's not saying it's bad, but it's just resources being used.
Right.
The second is when you have a chat or email to, many chats and many emails to one agent, right? Typically, an agent can handle more than one chat and more than one email at a time. So now you're spreading your agent resources across many channels. So when you think about offering that exit or an alternate channel as a way to help spread those agent resources, you're offering a consumer a way to get help quicker. You're offering that exit ramp to saying, hey, there's no wait over here. Come over here. We have agents available. Or if you're willing to wait, whatever the email SLA is, 2 to 3 days, you can email. But there's simple tricks and simple things that could be implemented, I think, really easily and very quickly that can help support this 67% of Americans not wanting to wait on hold
Yeah.
longer than 10 minutes.
Right. Well, and I one thing that you mentioned that I also want to address was that ability to solve a customer concern, right? So again, in the survey, we can see that the ability to resolve that concern, the demand for it has grown since your last survey, from 59% to 64% of people demanding the skill. They just want anybody who can get their problem solved. And so while that skill is great and it's in higher demand, it also showed that other skills like empathy and being pleasant to talk to, and even product service or knowledge, people didn't care about it as much, right? It's decreased because they just want their problem solved.
Yeah.
So
This is very interesting. So about a month ago, I was on a webinar talking about soft skills of agents. And the panel was really, so I believe this is a very super important topic, especially when it comes to agent training and finding the right agent. But it's evolved over the years. And these soft skills that you're talking about, they're hard to find and they're not easily taught, right? They combine a person's attitudes, not just their attitudes, but their personality, their character traits, their communication, their social, their people skills, their background. And people with this strong soft skills are generally more flexible. They can navigate a variety of these personal relationships and as well as challenges that might come up during a call or during a communication. And they typically will have a more positive attitude about it. So those are things that you can train on them, but it takes a lot of time and it's expensive to do.
yeah.
But that just comes down to the hiring, is the type of agents you're hiring, right? Is looking for the agents that have that flexibility, that have the right attitude, the personality, and those character traits that help fit your mission and as well as your business. And to kind of go along with that is I do believe people are not as sympathetic as they used to be, as versus, if we compare now versus the pandemic. So if you look at stats from years past, the stats would have been reversed.
Yeah.
And I think that's generally from a shift. People were a lot more sympathetic during the pandemic than they are now.
Yeah. Well, I think that they had sort of everyone had a common problem,
Yes,
right?
to
That they
work
all
towards.
unified
Yeah,
with. And,
everyone was unified,
yeah.
a common issue. Yeah.
And what do you think this says about modern consumer priorities? How do you think those have shifted?
That's a great question. And I think when you talk about the modern consumer priorities, I think it's timeliness to getting their call resolved, and then as well as making sure that it's done in a timely manner with the channel that they choose. And when you think about that, the more proactive communication, 77% of Americans in our survey found that proactive communication from healthcare providers is one of the most valuable.
Yeah, no, that is a great stat to know. I mean, if we know that our customers want their answers right away, then we want to do that as soon as possible. And if we're able to be proactive on that, that is
Yeah.
probably the best case scenario for them. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, what strategies can businesses across all industries kind of adopt to keep consumers engaged and informed,
Yeah.
and get them the answers they need right away?
So 77% Americans found that the healthcare, you just iterated that within the healthcare industry. But this is one industry that has actually performed best over the last 4 years. And they've come a long way in providing that needed and expected message. And what's interesting is I think healthcare has it easy. It's very ripe for the opportunity to automate and do these proactive communications. So you think about your doctor and your provider.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting bill reminders, right? You're getting pre-registration texts. You're getting post-visit appointments that any follow-up. You're getting whether your prescriptions are ready. Do you need to do anything for labs? So I feel like they were primed to be a part of the proactive communication revolution just because there was so much there.
Yeah.
And obviously, just speaking about the resources, this has just freed up more agent resources in the bottom line to the healthcare facility, to be able to continue to provide a better experience. And I think that's just translated across the industry as a whole, which is really cool to see. I don't think there's many industries that are able to do this type of transition in the proactive communications.
Yeah, and how do you think that proactive communication? I mean, do you think it could help reduce negative reviews or build long-term
Yeah,
brand loyalty, or what is the draw to do that aside from getting them what they want?
yeah, I think so. So think about agents are unpredictable. They can deviate from the script. They can let emotions get the best of them. Um, there's many factors. We're all human. We're not going to be perfect in every way. And I think that's where AI and the proactive communications, where they're consistent, they won't deviate. Um, you're not giving agents an inconsistent experience, or I guess in this case, patience. And you're not giving them the excuse to complain about an experience or an agent in particular, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of removing that barrier of getting a negative review. So in the end, obviously, on the flip coin, you're going to get potentially more positive reviews. So I think there's definitely a correlation there.
Yeah, I mean, you can't complain about getting more positive reviews. That's awesome.
Yep.
We're coming up on our time here, so I just wanted to, first of all, thank you for coming and sharing all these insights. I know that there's a lot more to unpack in the rest of the ebook that you shared. But before we sign off, is there anything that you want to leave the listeners with? Anything you want to mention before we go?
Yeah, I think we'll leave a link for the download below. So just grab your copy. It's really really cool to see all of these stats all in one place, right? So obviously, as you review these results, you're going to notice that consumers, patients, or whatever industry you're in, they're all looking for the best experience, and they're all looking for the channel that they want. So it's essential to be able to improve and optimize all those channels, and as well as to meet younger generation's preferences. And just remember that don't bite off more than you can chew. And I think that's kind of been the theme throughout this as you've look at these digital channels, and as you have some takeaways, is like, wow, how can I take this and just start slow.
Yeah.
and there's ways to do it.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you, and thank you again for coming in, McKay.
Anytime.
It was great to have you, and we'll catch you soon.
Okay, thanks, Spencer.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to TCN's Cloudcast. We hope you gained valuable insights and perspectives on the ever-evolving world of contact center software. Don't forget to subscribe for future episodes as we continue to explore the cutting-edge trends and innovations.